Hey guys, welcome back to AMS. Last time you were here, we put a whole bunch of work in to this fuel door, getting it ready to take the Tahoe fuel neck as we work on the fuel system, getting it all assembled. This go round, we're going to take that Tahoe fuel neck we made fit, and we're actually going to go ahead and connect it back down to the fuel tank. Stick around. Hey guys, so when last we spoke, I had just finished building that. Well, after having built it, and then I welded it onto the vehicle, I realized that's still not really the shape I need. So, with the drop down in here, it would go straight down to here, and I started drilling that hole. But then I realized something. My new body panel comes to here, down underneath. So this is going straight into the interior under here, which meant I would have to punch another hole, and that wasn't going to work. So then I moved to here and started over again. And then I realized that this is a big old cross brace that sticks out here. That wasn't going to work. So finally I got to here, where I punched a big hole, cut it out with a jigsaw, made up this little pipe. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened the other day, and my SD card was full, and so I ended up just getting some work done. But I'll show you guys how I did this here in a little bit. But anyway, I made a union pipe that goes through the floor. I've got a little bit of rubber sealy stuff halfway in there, but it needs to be like pulled in a little bit better, and then I'll probably use a bit of seal-all or something just to tack it to the floor pan. But anyway, what we ended up with is we've got a stick down that comes under here. It's actually underneath the car in the fuel hose to just keep crap out of it. But we've got a line that comes down here, then a big Z that comes over to here that I'm going to have in order to put this together. But regardless of that, I thought, you know what I can do? I can hook this to the tank underneath. So I got to work under there. Ugh. I better find a flashlight, actually. None of my flashlights work, so that's cool. Just a minute, I gotta find a flashlight. Up under here, you can see the fuel neck there, but that is the pipe coming through the floor right there. So, this pipe, my bum, goes from there. The fuel hose will go from there up over here and back to there. So I took it off and it wasn't quite the right length, so I made some measurements and tra-la-la. And anyway, I cut it too freaking short. I cut like 1.5 inches off this end and 1.5 inches off that end, wherever it is. There we go. And I really only should have cut 1.5 inches off the one end. That's all I should have done, and it would have been perfect. But I thought I had it all measured, thought I understood what was going on, and clearly I didn't. So, today, after work, I ran by the pick and pull targeted strike, and I bought myself that, a whole new fuel neck. Now, there's a couple of advantages to that. One, I have this piece of hose here that I can just reuse again and get it right this time. But also, when I was under there, I realized the Tahoe has that piece of hose in it as well. And I am really hoping that that is basically the right shape to cover that Z issue from the fuel neck to the pass-through bulkhead. Also, if I'd really realized it earlier on, I would have realized that I didn't need to buy the chunk of exhaust or the other thing I bought to get this piping, because I could have just used these pieces. So that would have saved me, $20 or $30, I don't know. Not a ton, but it still would have been nice. So I've done a little bit of scrubbing on this just to clean it up a bit. I'll probably scrub it a bit more. Alright, so we got all that stuff cleaned up. Got the two hoses. Bit of grass on them. And this is the other fuel neck. The original fuel neck is just down under the vehicle in the fuel hose, but that's fine for now. I want to test this Z fitting. So, we have to bolt this in from the inside. Well, that's going to require a tripod and stuff, so just a minute. So you can see I've got the fuel neck here. My pass-through pipe is down here. And this is what I just picked up to be able to put them together. So, the real answer is not quite. I think I could make it work just fine. This is as far up as this will go, so I can't quite merge the two of them together. So I'm either going to need to make another one of these that's quite a bit longer, which is an option. I do have the pipe. Or possibly I can reuse that chunk from the actual Tahoe fuel neck and just use it instead of this, and maybe that will give me a shape I can use. Let's find out. Alright, so here's that pipe that I made. I made it 5 inches long, just guessing that would be enough. Clearly it was not enough. This is another piece of the Tahoe fuel neck. It had a bracket brazed to it right here. But I just figured I would see if, in some fashion, this can be made to work. Alright. So that all works alright. Let's get underneath and see what it looks like. Ow! I just ran into the fuel door. That hurt. Alright. I think that's going to do what we need. Sweet. Now I gotta get this all pulled back apart. Now, I actually just cut that an inch longer than I thought I needed to. Really, my measurement says I should cut on the other side of this. But I've already cut some of this fuel system crap too short, so I'm going with longer, and if I need to do it again, great. I'm going to test fit that, and then I'll show you guys where we're at. So that's basically butted all the way up to the body right there. Let's double check that. Okay, that back there looks good. I've got 2 fingers worth of clearance between the pipe and the frame. Hopefully I've got mostly a downward slope. It's hard to get in there to see, but I think the general trajectory is downward, so that should flow well. Originally, when I was building this, I was going to run a rubber grommet around this and have that movable. But at this point, I'm starting to think I may just weld that into place. It shouldn't be a big deal up here, because if I do have to mess with this, I can take the bolts out of that and just kind of pull the whole thing. So it's fine that it doesn't really remove from there. So I think when it comes down to it, I'm going to end up welding all that into place. Not going to do that with it hooked to the fuel system. And I'm not even going to do it right now. The next step, I've got to get that center pipe back out, and we need to put a flange back on it. So I told you guys I had made this piece. It's actually just out of a length of 2-inch exhaust tubing. Just this stuff, which you can buy at any local auto parts store. So that was my original idea. And so I made a pair of flanging pliers to put these flares on it. Or flaring pliers, I guess. It's not quite the same as the factory flare, but gives you something for a hose clamp to reach around and grab onto. So now I need to do the same to this thing. These are the incredibly scary flanging pliers that I made. Inside it are 3 curves of wire. You can see there's 3 curves of wire in there, and those snapping together adjustably are what actually create that roll. Usually I do it in a couple rounds, so I'm not stretching it as hard. It's not quite as hard to do. I've got it just welded to the nose of the pliers. When I'm done with this, I will just cut that weld and they come right off. But because of how far up that hose goes, I think I'm going to actually weld or flare it pretty much at the full depth of these jaws. I'm just getting a feel for how much flare I can do without destroying my hands. It looks like right there is the flare I'm going to be able to give this thing. Alright, that's once all the way around, so I'll just tighten it up a little bit. Go around again to stretch that flare further. And there, you can see the nice roll that that's put on this thing. So that is pretty much ready to go back in, and I ground all of this down so that I can weld it all together. Alright, so with shaping and fitting all finished up, we are going to just weld this thing in. I'd originally intended to have like a gasket around it and it be removable, but I just don't think that's necessary. I think it'll be just fine welded in place. One other thing I do want to note, this is not currently connected to the gas tank at all. I have the filler neck in the filler hose capped off completely, stretched completely, folded out the other direction, and covered with a fiberglass blanket. So, we should be good to go. And there it is, all cleaned up and welded in. And I even went ahead and painted it. After I'd painted it is when I realized that I have another pipe I have to put through that floor. So I really shouldn't have painted that yet. Oh well. So this one's going to go through somewhere in this area, or actually I think I'm going to put it through like this. But either way, this is just the vent line. So we'll just get a hole punched for it and get that all set up. And there's the finished product with the pass-through. Up to that thing, and down underneath, I'd better grab some kind of light. Yeah. My bum. That's what we have down on the underside. they don't quite face in the same direction, they're different lengths. None of that means a thing here. As long as the hoses can get to them, it's perfect. So I'm going to probably put a little more paint under here. And then, actually, I'm going to paint and seam seal around those. And then I'll be ready to hook everything up.
Hey guys, so that filler neck is all together now. I put it all together, tested it with a gas can, found out I had welded a big fat hole in the main filler pipe, took it all back apart, got a bunch of gas in my face, welded up the hole, put it all back together, and it all seems pretty good now. I might have a couple pinholes, I'm not sure. I was really trying to weld cold enough that that wouldn't happen, but I just, around that backside where I can't see, I just failed miserably. So I'm going to pick up some Seal-All or one of those gas-resistant type sealants and just sort of smother the welds in that just for an extra layer of protection. I also seam sealed around these pipes that I welded in from the underside before I painted it all. And check out this. Best feature ever. Not only did I put in the Tahoe gas cap, but oh yeah, I even made the tether work. So, with that basically done, and me 3/4 of the way confident that this will actually accept a gas nozzle being pushed into it, the next thing I want to do is build the shield that's going to surround that. I added those legs, if you recall, for that purpose, so now we're going to get to work on that. Maybe I should have refit this panel with this one already out, because, yeah. This panel's in the wrong place for this one to fit back in perfectly. Crap, that sucks. But I think depth-wise, I think maybe I just need to take this and kind of come down it and back up, and then at least cap, I think I'll at least cap part of it. And unfortunately, because of that Z, it's a big area that I need to protect. Alright, I'm going to show you guys a technique that I picked up recently for welding in place blind nuts like these are, where I can't get to the backside. Pretty simple, but pretty clever. So, as you can see, I've got 3 holes. I've got the main hole where I want the thing to go through. Then I've got holes drilled pretty close to the sides on both sides. All you're doing is you get everything all nice and snug-like where you want it. And then you're just welding the nut. Start by welding directly to the nut and then back out and fill in the hole. And you've got yourself a nut welded in behind that's even pretty easy to go back and finish down smooth. So the welding technique was not working for me on this one. I was getting frustrated. I was looking for some additional hardware and ended up finding the Rivnut anvil for my M6 in my hardware for some reason. So we're riv nutting now. Alright, so I whipped up this random thing, just kind of folded the edge with a pair of needle nose pliers. It is not fantastic, but it'll do the job well enough. So we're just gonna kind of wedge it in here, start at one end and go to the other. Eventually I'll get around to putting some foam strip on there, and that part is done. So with the fuel neck all finished up, and honestly, I'm really happy with how that worked out. And this trash can assembled to cover it in case of anything I want to store in here. All that fuel system stuff is finished up. I'm getting a little bit tired of working here on the interior, so we're going to change it up a bit. So next up, we're going to take care of the gap between the Travelall's windshield frame and the Tahoe's firewall there on the front. There's actually a lot of work that has to go into rebuilding that cowl. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.